We're back in time for the Politics Fix with MSNBC's Pat Buchanan and Salon.com's Joan Walsh. Well, let me ask you this about this affirmative action case up in New Haven, Connecticut. A lot of people would say it's not affirmative action. The court basically held that the city of New Haven was right to deny promotions to white firefighters because they passed the test and no blacks passed the test. Therefore, it was an unfair test. And the courts are going to rule on that at the Supreme Court now. And you got to wonder about Justice Sotomayor, who's also up for the Supreme Court, who ruled apparently against the white firefighters. What do we make of this, Joan?
Well, yeah, I think she was in a 7-6 majority ruling against the white firefighters. They chose not to hear it, is what I recall, Chris. Look, you know, here we are, 3 Irish Catholics talking about the toughest, one of the toughest, I think, affirmative action cases in the country. And the reason these firefighter cases, discrimination cases, are so difficult, Chris, is that these kinds of mechanisms where somebody takes a test, passes the test, and then is denied, they break your heart, and in my opinion, they are unfair. But if I can just talk about the other side of the coin for a minute before Pat jumps on me, and I know he will. You know, there's a reason that we have these ugly cases, and that's the failure of our politics to really resolve some of these ugly conflicts. We have fire departments all over this country, God bless them, that are still disproportionately not just white, but Irish Catholic. You know, in my home of San Francisco is that way, and here I'm in New York today, and it's a majority of New Yorkers are black or Latino, and only 10% are firefighters. And so what's happened in a lot of these cases, Chris, is that these Irish Catholic-dominated unions have really fought efforts to make the tests more fair.
Well, I'm suspicious of your argument, Joan, because I think we've had in the past a lot of Italian barbers, and I don't see any problem with that. We had a lot of Mexicans running Mexican restaurants. I don't see the problem. But if you can prove discrimination, I'm with you. Pat, it's about proving discrimination. You have to prove it. You can't just assume it.
So we think there's something uniquely Irish Catholic about being able to fight fires.
It's called tradition. It's been going on since the 19th century.
And it discriminates against black people.
Well, wait a minute now, Joan. Now, there is rank and ugly discrimination here. And it's against a man who studied in 13 hours a day, got rid of a second job, listening on tape because he's dyslexic. His dream, his American dream, is taking a test with 70 other guys and coming in the top 8 so he can be promoted to lieutenant. He succeeds and wins, and the only reason he's not promoted is because his ancestors came from Italy, and this guy is white. This is a rank act of discrimination, which is an outrage, and it's not a tough case at all. It's a simple case. You denied the guy a job he deserved, fought for and worked for because he's a white man.
And a black firefighter in San Francisco was served dog food at his firehouse just a couple of years ago, Pat, not 20 years ago.
I mean, nobody's saying that's a good thing.
What?
You're telling me what they did to Frank Rickey is a good thing?
No, I'm not. I said that from the beginning. I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it was fair. I think these are very ugly cases that have very ugly outcomes where basically everyone is harmed. The city of New Haven hasn't had new blood in its leadership because they can't even, they're choosing not to make these promotions. So I think everybody who looks at this case knows that there's something wrong with it. But I don't think we can lose sight of what the history is. And when we've had affirmative action that has elevated African Americans to leadership positions in my city of San Francisco, they're wonderful firefighters, they're great leaders, and they do a terrific job.
That is fine as long as if you give them a test, they win it fair and square. And the test is fair. There is no evidence this test was unfair. Brian Weber down in Louisiana didn't get a promotion, white working class guy, even though he came out ahead. Alan Backey out there trying to get into medical school, one of the last guys, an older guy, denied it. What is happening now to white men right now is exactly what was done to black folks for years.
No, I don't buy Pat.
Joan, my problem is results-based fairness. If 15 guys go out for a basketball team or any sports team and 10 of them who win happen to be one ethnic group, I'm not going to say there's something wrong with the tryout. I would say the top 10 won, and that's why they're on the team.
Chris,
I wouldn't say redo the tryout so that you have racial balance on the team or any other kind of sports event. I think it's about fairness, not about results.
Public sector jobs are a very different animal from a sports team. There are plenty of black and Latino and female firefighters who can do the job, who can meet requirements for the job, but these tests have often historically been rigged, and the entire promotion system has been rigged.
Joan,
We are
look, if you show me, you have not shown me any test that's been rigged. If there's a test that's rigged that gets all Irish Catholics in and no Italian Catholics, no blacks, no Hispanics, no Polish Catholics, I would say take a hard look at the test. Nobody has said this test was rigged at all. This guy worked for it. They all took it. It's simply they came in with the results, and all of them were white except for one Hispanic guy of the 8.
Right.
And so they threw it out because of race. And that is really an outrage. It's like what done to Jackie Robinson. He's not playing second base earlier for one reason. He's the best player, but because he's black.
One of the arguments I accept from Clarence Thomas, who I normally disagree with, was he said the problem with this kind of so-called affirmative action. I'm certainly for reaching out to people that don't normally make the list, and I'm certainly for aggressive recruitment. But when it comes down to rigging tests so you get a certain result, that's what Clarence Thomas says his presence at Yale Law bothered him. He said there's some people that see a fellow like him at Yale Law and say, oh, you got in because they had some quota that got you in. He doesn't like that notion out there. And this kind of Supreme Court ruling, if they go in that direction, is going to sell that idea that the only way a minority gets a break in this country is because somebody gave them a break on a test.
I think we
and
need
that's
to have
not healthy.
Chris, it stigmatizes African Americans who are succeeding. You're exactly right. And it discriminates against white guys who had nothing to do with slavery or segregation.
By the way,
Italian Americans didn't even come to this country until the 1880s.
Frank Ritchie's Italian. The other complaint in the case is Hispanic. I don't think it's all about the Irish, but I do think the Irish have a proud tradition of firefighting. And damn it, Joan, the guys that got killed on 9/11, a lot of them were Irish, and they chose to be firefighters because it's a family tradition that goes back to the 19th century, and they believe in it. That's why they want to be firefighters.
Please, Chris. I have firefighters in my family. God bless them. They're brave.
Well, why are you accusing them of bigotry?
Because the fact of the matter is they have protected those jobs for their brothers, for their sons, and their public sector jobs. This isn't the family business,
we'll see
Chris.
If that was a fair test or not, but you can't judge a test by the results. You got to judge a test by its basic fairness, and we'll see when the final court rules on this. Thank you very much, Pat Buchanan.
Chris, you talk about the Republican Party. They ought to be the party of Frank Ritchie. That's exactly who they should represent.
We'll be right back with Joan Walsh and Pat Buchanan to talk about the Kennedys. More Irish talk when we come back. You're watching Hardball.